I believe it's okay to disappear for a while, to get off social media, to not be influenced by everyone who's doing everything better than you, and just dive deep on your compositions and then bank. Just bank. Create a body of work, a catalog, if you will, of songs that you can feel that, you know what, I took those as far as they could go, man. And then, of course, create all the supplemental stuff, the videos, the promotional stuff. Have those in the bank. So when it does come time to pull the trigger, you can start releasing because everything was already made in advance, but you have that 8 to 10 track with videos. If you were just to use the 2-week release strategy, that's 16 weeks of stuff that's just rolling. You're just rolling, and then you get to disappear again and make music again.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Headliner Mindset Podcast. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to share about a really awesome event and opportunity that's coming up. You know, if you have been a listener of the podcast, you definitely hear us talk about branding. You hear us talk about how it's important to figure out who you are and how to portray yourself, how to create something that is going to cut through the noise when everyone else is out there scrambling for attention. You get to come through and do something really unique and different. And that's through your brand. That's what people are going to be following you for beyond just the music, right? But you really got to take the time to figure that out and to build something cool. And you've also probably heard me talk about The Cult Creatives, an incredible branding and marketing agency that I've been involved with for a long time. That's exactly what we do. We build cool shit for cool artists. And we are having a very cool event, June 27th through the 30th in Los Angeles. This is our second annual Build a Brand workshop. 3 full days of panels and exercises, workshops, working with the actual Cult Creatives team to figure out your brand, to build your brand. Every day we have a guest speaker this year, which is super exciting. We have Henry Fong, Flostradamus, and Valentino Khan coming through to talk to you guys and hang out. And on the 4th day is our photo shoot day. You guys are all walking away with high-level photo shoots with really amazing photographers that we use for all of our biggest clients. So if you guys want to come through, if you need help getting your brand figured out, this is the place to do it. Send me a DM. I'd love to talk to you about it. You can also go to our website at thecultcreatives.com/workshop to get more info there. I'll put that link in the show notes, but I hope to see you there. Now, as far as today's guest, this is a really, really exciting one. He is an old friend and colleague of mine. We used to teach music business at Icon Collective together. So he's an incredibly smart music business professional. He's run a digital marketing agency for a long time, working with a lot of top artists. But I'm having him on today because he got sick of just working with artists and decided that he wanted to get back into making music himself. And I'm so inspired by him. I'm so inspired by his journey. This was a few years ago that he made that pivot, started making music, got back into playing all the instruments that he grew up playing, producing, and just recently played one of the biggest music festivals in the world. This is Hisham Dahud.
What up, Nick?
What up, brother? Welcome. This is such an exciting episode, and I hope everybody's as pumped as I am because I'm sitting with somebody very special right now, somebody who used to teach music business with me at Icon Collective, someone who knows so much about not only the business side of things, but also so much about the artist side of things because you've been diving deep back into that side of it, and I'm very, very excited to hear about how that journey has been going. But I'm going to be honest, we are jumping into this episode full raw dog, freestyle. I have no questions prepared. This is just me catching up with one of my fucking brothers right now, and it's going to be a really fun episode. So I'm happy to have you here, dude. I'm so excited to catch up with you because it's been way too long.
It has been way too long. And, you know, like our paths did cross in like that academic, you know, environment to help artists and whatnot. But like we've always kind of been on our own paths. And like Icon was its own incubator of sorts, you know, I mean, like to allow me to take this time, Nick, just to say like how proud I am of you and seeing how you took that step. I remember you told me, you're like, dude, like I'm leaving Icon. I got some things on my mind, things I want to work out. And yeah. I saw you get, you know, from your certification to your own education to your community building in LA and in Austin. And you've kind of built something around your own personal philosophies that people seem to really resonate with. And whatever you're doing, it's working. So I just want to say congratulations for that.
Thanks, man. Thanks, dude. And, you know, it's it's really interesting being on my end. You know, we have so much in common. One, you're a skateboarder. We both come from a background in skateboarding. Yep. We both come from a background in also playing drums as like our main core instrument, right? And I definitely have found my purpose and my calling in terms of, you know, coaching, right? I'm so called to do this life coaching thing, to do this artist coaching thing. You know, I used to have dreams of being like a motivational speaker like Tony Robbins, but I found my little way to do that. And at the same time, deep down, like I also still am an artist. You know, I still pick up the guitar. I still know how to play the drums, right? It's all still in there. And it also is something I still wrestle with to a certain extent where I'm like, oh, like, should I start making music again? Like there is this part of me that I'm like, okay, at some point, I feel like I do need to sit down and actually create. And this is what I love about you and what I respect about you so much is, you know, you were really working in the business, working in the industry, also working in that education space. But you said, hey, you know what? I'm sick of being on the sidelines and helping all of the artists, and I'm ready to get back in the arena and be an artist again myself. And so I love that. I respect that. And I really want us to start the conversation there of like, what was pulling you to get back into being an artist and what really inspired you to go for it again? Because I'm not gonna spoil the rest of it, but you've done some fucking cool stuff since then. So.
Yeah. Well, before I dive into that, like the notion of like I feel like an artist inside, therefore I want to make music. I mean, this does relate to your question, but like I don't think anymore that like the artist identity is inherently tied to like the creative act necessarily. Like the way I would argue the way you've lived your life, Nick, is very much one of an artist, having gone through continuous progressions, evolutions, seeing the world a certain way, creating things
for sure
that reflect that certain way. I mean, I feel like just the instrumentation. I see you posted videos of you playing guitar where you're shredding. I'm like, well, of course, like he's a musician, obviously. Like, but I would argue that's just one arm of your artistry.
Yeah. I mean, the podcast has been such a good example of that, where it's like, it is just creative energy. Where are you pointing your creative energy, right? I've poured my creative energy into, you know, one, now really creating a business for myself, but like pouring my creative energy and my love into my clients and to helping other people. But the podcast has been a very tangible piece of art that, you know, 56, 57 episodes later, it's like, hey, we've created a really cool thing here. So I think everybody is an artist. You know, I think life is the canvas. Life is your greatest masterpiece of art that you are creating. And are you creating it consciously and with passion and energy and love, or are you creating it unconsciously out of like fear, right? And I think both of us we're intentionally creating our lives, right? And so I totally resonate with that. Is just, yeah, what's the form? I know for me though, I got some fucking metal riffs that need to be recorded and some shit that needs to come out. So it's coming sooner than later.
Well, side note, send me those riffs, dude, because I'm always hungry for riffs. I mean, I have a second studio with a drum set with 11 microphones on it. So
let's go.
Here, send me that.
This is actually the vision that's been coming up where, and I think this is also good for artists to really think about. I've been having a bigger conversation about, you know, being a producer, especially like, I think there's a difference between being a bedroom producer and having sort of a bedroom producer mindset, which is like, I have to do everything by myself because I have this laptop that I can make all the sounds and everyone's trying to do it by themselves. But the reality is, you know, what I would call more like the headliner mindset. When you look at some of these guys and girls that are the biggest artists in the world, they're more like managing teams of people that are helping them make stuff. You know, I have a vocal producer. I have maybe a finisher that's finishing the tracks, a mixing and mastering engineer. I got like 7 people that are helping me make the songs. And so I've been toying with that idea a lot of really it being more about collaboration. I'm like, you know, I don't want to sit there and like engineer and really learn Ableton, but I'm down to write riffs all day. Yeah. Right. So I've been thinking about that. I'm like, hey, what would actually be really fulfilling for me? And I'll throw this out there. If anyone needs guitar riffs, hit me up and I'll just write guitar riffs for people all day and just send them over. You guys can engineer them. I don't really have a desire to do that.
Yeah, dude. Well, again, like we're all driven by different things. So to kind of go back to your question of like what drove me to kind of go back to making the music more of a focal point. I mean, if anyone, you know, listening out there like doesn't quite know the trajectory I had, I grew up playing instruments. I mean, I'm sure you talk a lot about this, by the way, in your coaching, because I know we and I rapped about this of like so much of what I do is part of healing the wounded child within me.
Yeah.
And to that, I mean, growing up in the States, coming from, a Palestinian background and whatnot, like I was picked on a lot, and like music was the only thing that people couldn't take away from me. So I was able to identify through deep reflection and journaling, like why music is so paramount besides the feel goodness of it. It's because it was the first thing that really gave me a sense of worth in my identity. And to kind of take that to another scale, I've always had this like I'll show them attitude, which
Yeah.
I know is completely ego driven. I know it's not sustainable, but it's still here at 36 years old, dude. I'm not gonna lie, I still have that.
And it's so common, bro. Like almost every fucking artist I coach, once we start peeling away the layers a little bit, and like, what's that driving force? There's a lot of that there. Like I'll show my parents, or I'll show the bullies, I'll show the world, right? It's there.
It's cliche, but it is there. But something else has kind of driven me now, because I kind of looked at what I did on the marketing side. So again, like I was always in bands, always playing music, and then I kind of fell into the marketing space by managing MySpace pages for artists in San Francisco, which led to the formation of a digital marketing agency. And I think I kind of used what could be described as a shadow career. If anyone doesn't really know what that term means, it's this notion of like you're adjacent to the thing you want, you're kind of close to the thing you want, but for whatever reason, from fear, lack of willpower, lack of discipline, whatever it might be, you're content. I shouldn't say cool. You're content with just, being on the periphery. So literally being close to the thing. A friend of mine told me something that really stuck with me. Sometimes you got to be really close to the thing to realize just how far you are from it. So from me going on tour with all these artists, frankly, getting some of the status that would satisfy the whole I'll show them thing.
Yeah.
At a certain point, that did satisfy me a little bit. But I started to realize that like there was two things. One, that's not what I initially set out to do. That's not what I wanted to show people, frankly, at all. And the more I started working with the creative types, the more I began to just more resonate deeply with what drove them, therefore realizing I've kind of abandoned that a little bit. And also a true belief in oneself of like, actually, I do have the aptitude to get proficient and speak fluently creatively. Now, I also learned recently there's a difference between believing in yourself and believing yourself. I've always kind of had that, like, I know I can do it. I'm starting to make things that I really like, but why aren't things happening? And that would kind of propel one to be like, well, do I even believe me? Like, why is anything really happening in this space? But until, again, like music is just any kind of creative pursuit is so weird because it's not linear, and there's no barometers. There's no like, now you're this title and now you have this salary, progressive, progression. But like at my lowest point, did I receive the call to get one of my highest career accolades, which was to play at Coachella. And it was the day I got that call. I swear to you, dude, I was at my lowest when I was like, I'm posting these videos of me drumming. No one seems to care. No one seems to like, they love when I post the piano stuff. They love when I post other stuff. When it comes to the drumming, my first love, if you will, no one seems to care. So should I abandon this thing? Like, I love playing it, but it's not resonating with people. That was the day I got the call, like, hey, I just recommend you for Coachella. So I don't know.
Interesting. Tell me more about what was going on at that lowest point. Sounds like you were starting to doubt yourself, even putting stuff out. Like, what was that, what I call the saboteur, the inner gremlin, the little doubting voice inside of our brain that tells us, we're too old, nobody cares. Like, what was that narrative that was going on in that moment?
I'd have to really dive deep on that, but the first thing that comes to mind, which is something that is still fueling the way I'm making music today, is I'm not special enough. It's not that I'm not good enough or I'm not proficient enough. What I'm doing is not unique enough. And that's kind of, I think, Nick, like the residue left over from my marketing brain of like, how can I package this thing, And I've thankfully got to a point now where I push through that a little bit, as opposed to saying like, how do I get more unique? It's just like, how do I almost entertain myself? It's a similar question, actually, right? Because like right now, actually, I just put this little glockenspiel on my acoustic piano over here, and I'm experimenting with some different effects on it. And my right hand, what would normally be my right hand on some of these piano compositions, I'm literally holding like the mallet in my mouth and swapping between the mallet and my right hand while adding different effects. And I'm just like, I'm entertained by this. I'm amused by this because I've never really heard it done like this before. And I'm sure maybe someone else out there has, because of social media, everything is exposed and it's easy to compare yourself. But I'm like, I never did it like this. I've never done it like this. And I've been doing it long enough now where I know, like, I used to have this foolish mentality of just like, this is it. And I'm sure a lot of people listening to this can relate to this. I'm like, this song is going to be it. This is the track that's going to get me out there. Or this way of making music. This is it. Not realizing that they're all just little milestones that lead to the second, third, fourth, fifth thing beyond that. And you can't look at it as any kind of final arrival. Just more like, I broke some new ground. Great. It's nice to know that the hole continues to go just a little bit deeper.
Yeah. And I think we're also really touching on the driving force underneath it, which when it's coming from ego, right, then it's about how is this going to make me special? Like you said, kind of my marketing brain is like, all right, well, how is this going to make me special, make me unique, because then I'll have more success. I'll get more attention. I'll get more followers, right? Like that's like really where it's coming from. How am I back to that piece of like, I'm going to prove that I am worthy enough or important enough or just different or unique. It's very different than when you're coming from what's fun, what feels good, like that's why I love playing riffs. It's like there's a feeling that when I figure out that right riff, I'm like my guiding force is what's fun to play, right? It's like, this just feels hella fun to play. This fucking brings me joy. Right. And easier said than done for me. I'm not putting shit out. I'm not trying to build a career. So it's very pure in that sense. And not that it's one or the other. I think it's good we still have to have our marketing brain. Right. I talk a lot about duality where it's like, yeah, you're an artist, but you're also a business owner. But when it comes to being in the creative process, it's good to leave that business owner mentality behind, leave the marketing behind, leave the fucking ego behind, like find that little pocket where it's like, oh yeah, this is hella fun.
Totally.
And follow that trail of breadcrumbs and it'll probably lead you somewhere pretty cool.
Yeah. And more importantly, like what's really helped me lately is like, I'm an instrumental producer for the most part. Lately, I've been collaborating with singers. So like, rather than finding my voice through literally my voice and the lyrical content, I have to pull from other things. So what's been interesting for me lately is that I've noticed that when you pull in so many aspects of your life, and frankly, sometimes you just need more life to live, dude. Like if you're relatively young, 16, 17, 18, you're going to be pulling from your influences and the people you listen to. But that's you're just pulling from sonic stuff, from audio. And at 36, having gone through all the shit I've gone through, dude, from having worked with film composers for the last like 12 years. Well, no shit, my music tends to be more cinematic. Having only recently the last 3-4 years been really tapping back into my Middle Eastern roots. Well, of course, like now I'm having more of a Middle Eastern influence into the stuff. So the more life you live, and I feel like the more you process it and the more you put it back into the music, people will sense that authenticity. And I think that's going to get a lot further than any like proficiency. I like drawing parallels from other worlds. Like this morning, I watched a 10-minute YouTube documentary on Jon Favreau and his rise. But it was specifically talking about his very first film, Swingers. If you've not seen that film, it is an amazing movie. It's so
classic,
fun.
So good.
It's also very low budget. And what I did not know about this film is that he was it literally was reflecting just his life. He wrote about himself. All the characters were his friends, and he insisted that his friends play those characters. Like everything was just mirrored perfectly from his actual life. And you can sense it. I mean, the guy got offers to like, hey, you can be a producer, but we'll take it from here, kid. And he's like, no, I really insist on getting my buddies in this because when we act, we'll know what we're doing because we really did these things. Sure, the lighting is fucked up. Sure, there's certain things that just don't look high quality, but you know what? You can sense the charm. And you can
energy.
And you can sense that like this feels real. It feels like it's really coming from someone's experience. And if you were to use a music equivalent, it's like, all right, maybe the track isn't mixed perfectly. Maybe some of the instrumentation isn't played perfectly. But what I'm sensing is someone's like honest expression. That's the hardest thing to do.
Yeah, 100%. I talk about that a lot with my clients is encouraging them to get out of the studio, right? Because there is this sense of, well, one, you got to be in the studio. You got to master your craft. You got to put in your 10,000 hours. You got to fucking grind. But a lot of people they're doing that. But there is a tipping point. There is a diminishing rate of return where it's like what's actually going to benefit you is to go take a weekend off and go fucking party somewhere. Go on a trip to Joshua Tree. Go take a little fucking road trip. Go, go get your heart broken. Go
Straight
live your
up.
fucking life, right? So that you actually have something to talk about. Not just, you can get really good at clicking buttons, but what the fuck are you saying, right? What are you actually expressing from your soul? You need to go fill up your soul, and you don't really do that in the studio, especially as a producer just staring at a fucking computer all day. You got to go live your life, right?
If you were to use like just breathing as a very basic elementary analogy, you need to inhale to exhale. If all you're doing is exhaling, you're gonna be out of breath, man.
Ooh, I love that. That is such a good metaphor, dude. That's so good. We got to pump the brakes for a second.
Okay.
We just glossed over something really massive, which is that you just played Coachella a couple fucking weeks ago. And so this is so exciting. Like, this, to me, when I saw that, I was just like, fuck yeah. Because I haven't really talked to you that much since, we both left Icon, I think right around the same time. It was like right around the same time we both left Icon. We kind of went on our separate journeys. We were even coaching together a little bit. You had a coaching platform that you were doing as well. And I've just been kind of from the sidelines seeing you go further into your artist journey. And so I would love to hear about what that journey has looked like, really, like since you left Icon, since you started getting back into making music, and then how the fuck did you end up playing Coachella? So, like, tell me the story. Like, what's gone down for the last, was that like maybe 4 years, 5 years?
Yeah. I mean, I turned back music on around that 2019 era, and at the time, again, I was still in what I call the tracing phase of just like, I like certain sounds, I'm just going to emulate them because I'm a musician, but I wasn't really in artist mode, I would say, yet. So I was making a lot of neoclassical music because I discovered that through the Berlin scene that I spent a lot of time in, and I just started putting music out under the alias Risik, which is actually my mother's maiden name, but also in Arabic it loosely translates to the word blessing. And I think, like, how perfect is that, actually? Like, because I'm a self-taught person, and all of this music stuff is just like, I don't know, it's just there. And I've been given the creative runway to develop it. And it did really well in that I got on a lot of editorial playlists, and I think it was like 60 million streams my first year.
How did you get on those playlists? Did you have a pitching strategy that you were implementing behind the scenes? Were you working with a distributor? Like, because that's a big question everyone wants to figure out, right?
Both. Some of them were from pitching, some were from a distributor through a record label, which, by the way, isn't always the guarantee. Like, it has to like be of a certain, I wouldn't say quality, but it has to fit. I happen to be fitting really well with these dreamy piano playlists and whatnot, and people, I mean, I can see from like my ASCAP reports and whatnot, people still play a lot of that music, even though I stopped releasing it. And I'll get to in a second why, but it was just very functional music, Nick, to be honest with you. It wasn't like people, some people for sure were like, oh, who is this guy? Like, they hear the music and they'll click the profile. And again, my marketing background paid off, and that I had all the links ready to go. I had the whole funnel, I had the whole ecosystem ready to go, and I was building a fan base. But dude, like 89% of these people, I was just a passive listen to. Like, they didn't really care about me.
Well, here's kind of a cool point about that, because I remember another graduate from Icon, actually, who had his artist project that he was pursuing, and it's like, this is my house music, like DJing shows, like I'm chasing that path and that dream. But then on the side, he just started making like lo-fi music and had a little side project. He started putting that out, and it was getting like millions of plays on it because it was this sort of like easy listening, put it on Spotify, listen to it while you're studying. And that started generating some royalties as well. You start getting millions of plays. It's like, hey, that's putting a little bit of money in the bank. So just to plant the seed, you might be pursuing your main bread and butter artist path that's like under this brand. But if you feel inspired and maybe you have some other side shit that you're making, like, fucking put it out, see what happens, right? Like you never know when things kind of pop off, and just putting it out there, like there's streams to be had, there's licensing stuff that can happen that can just be putting some money in your pocket while you're continuing to pursue your main artist brand. Also,
and therein lies kind of the irony that, like, in retrospect, I should have maybe put all of that music under a different brand, because as I started to branch out, because I don't want to be known as like the piano guy, like, because I've always, dude, I mean, this is also like the good and bad thing I'd argue about like my musical taste and therefore creative pursuits, is that like I have such a wide range of tastes and emotions I like to go to. Dude, I cannot make verse, chorus, bridge, chorus music, dude. Like I do with other artists, but I bring what I bring to those collaborations. But my personal music, like the last song I did that I just spent the last 3.5 weeks on, is like a 4.5 minute electronic, I don't know, journey, to lack of a better term. It's the kind of shit that it's almost like how I love like progressive metal and how it goes from like extreme heaviness and darkness to extreme beauty and then extreme darkness again. I think I'm like emulating the arrangements of those kinds of compositions by also bringing a cinematic but also like hip-hop sample based flair to, I don't fucking know, dude. Like I'm just kind of doing my thing at this point. But I want to ensure that I'm providing valuable information for your listeners here, because I want to go back to the idea of like, how did you get all those millions of streams? Well, you know, like that distributor that I met through the real world, dude. And I met also specifically because around that time, and I was looking to kind of get closer to my origins, my ethnicity, you know. So I had met him because he put on a conference in Palestine, which was helping artists in that area and bringing Western delegates. Little did I know he also ran our record label, right?
Wow.
So over the course of time, after meeting people in real life, by getting more in tune with your specific values, you might meet some people who could be critical allies for you, but it's not so transactional. You know, it's more like, not only do I like you as a person, but like you and I have like a similar mission in life, and you know, like I'm happy to help you and vice versa. So that's why it's so important to get the hell out of the studio, man, because those relationships that everyone talks about, and some people even complain about, oh, it's because they know someone. Well, of course, that's the whole point. Like, I got into music especially because I just loved the people I was hanging out with. I don't have to hang out with Janet in accounting, you know, if I don't want to. Like, it's perks of the job, you know what I mean? So go out there and get those perks.
It's so huge, man. You know, I've developed a bit of a, I guess, basic framework really after having all of these conversations on the podcast. I'm like, you know what, there's really like these 5 main pillars to artistic success. And for me, I put mindset at the beginning, right? Just like you got to have the right mindset. But there's music, branding, marketing, and networking. I think there's also a 6th, really, which is performing, if you're going to be actually getting out there. But that networking piece is so huge. I mean, it literally is 1,000% why I have a career in this business whatsoever. I mean, my entire role at Icon was just because of I had a network, and I started plugging in a network, and I started growing a network and connecting Icon with more people and just being that kind of dot connector. Also, that word networking is, I don't know. It's not even really the right word. Is it really? It's right. It's like networking has a little bit of a connotation of I'm going to go out and meet people that can help me build my career. And it's like, no, go make friends. Go build relationships, right? Like people help me because they fuck with me because we're homies, because we're friends. Like that's why, not because like I have this transactional value. I'm just like, yo, you're my homie and I love you and we have a relationship and I want to help you. You know what I mean? And whether that's helping you in the business or me driving to your house to help you move your fucking bed up the stairs, which I literally just did for someone the other day. It was just like, you know, just being friends, man. It's so important, and it's different than, you know, I mean, we spent enough time in LA to know how to sniff out people that are just there to get something and they just want that sort of business relationship versus actually being a friend. Yeah, I mean, sadly, networking can have a parasitic connotation to it, but networking done right is no different than making friends. And you already have a great common. How are friendships made, right? Even as many complain in their 30s, oh, it's hard to make friends. Like, but how are friendships made? Like through common bonds. And oh, you like making music? Me too. That's a pretty fucking strong one, especially when you've dedicated your life to it. Yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah. It's not hard to build from there, but. I like to remind artists, you know, sometimes, you know, a lot of artists can be very introverted. That's why we gravitate towards kind of maybe being in the studio or whatever. But I like to encourage artists to, especially if you want to be playing shows, it's like go to the club, become a part of the club, become a part of the community, like join the club, right? And the thing is, when you go there, everybody loves the same shit as you. Everyone's there for the same reason. We all love this kind of music, and this is why we're here. We all love shows, so you automatically have like a bond with people. You know, it's actually a lot more welcoming than people might think. So don't be scared. Get out there and go say what's up, shake some hands. You know? Yeah, man. I mean, community is critical. You know, and I feel like the more niche down you can get with even your community, like the more powerful those relationships will be. It's one thing, again, like, oh, you make music, I make music, cool. But it's like, all right, do we make the similar style? Do we have the same cultural background? Is there, what else? Do we both love pro wrestling?
Like some of my
Yeah.
greatest contacts in the industry are my closest friends. And it's funny. I think I rarely, and now I think about it, I rarely, if ever, like hit them up for any networking thing.
I forgot you're a big wrestling guy. I remember you got your whole crew over there.
Yeah,
with
man.
all the that's so good.
Oh man,
That's so
we
good.
fucking love it. But to give another example, like, you know, my homie John, 12th Planet, like I didn't even know he made music for a year. I didn't even know who he was. And now he and I are on Zoom sessions because I'm trying to work on my sound design specifically for that last track I did. And here he is just like giving me so much advice. He's someone in my network, but
Yeah.
it took me, what is this now? 11 years later to actually like tap into him as a resource in that regard. But it's like, it's not even transactional. He's like, dude, I love this song. I want to help you. You know?
Totally. Yeah. I just had a fun experience with someone. I was at a show here in Austin, and I walked into the green room. My other friend was playing, and I went into the green room, and this guy's just like, "Hey, what's up, man? Like, you want to take a shot? Like, how you doing? What's your name?" I was like, "Oh, we just hit it off," and we're talking for like 5 minutes or whatever, and I had no idea who he was. And then he's like, "Oh yeah," he was like the artist that was playing next, you know? And it was just from that conversation. I'm going to have him on the podcast soon because it was such a fun story. But it was like, we were rapping for a bit. I was like, "I have no idea who you are. You're just a cool dude." And we just fucking hit it off. And it was just human to human connection and contact. And it wasn't like, "Oh my God, you're this artist, and I need to be cool with you to like, you know, get you on the podcast or whatever." You know, just, I don't know. It's nice to meet just genuine people that are cool. And there's a lot of them out there. And you know, you get out, you get the energy that you put out.
Absolutely.
Also,
and
right?
I mean, that's a great point, dude. I mean, like, look, I'm not going to say there's a direct correlation because that's part of like a spiritual conversation, but like throughout my marketing career, like back to the beginning of this conversation of where you put your creative energy, I was putting it into the careers of other artists, right? I was constantly taking my energy source and pumping it into other people for their marketing plans, branding strategies, late nights, travel, tours, etc., helping other artists that are already established. Then I had my whole educational period, right? At Icon and Artist Pro, and I was really helping other, once again, almost like a shadow career part 2, right? Helping other artists once again. And is it any surprise then, Nick, to go back to your question here, like the same person who helped me get, his name is Abid, the same person that got me all that success or helped get some of that success on Spotify is the same person that recommended me for Coachella, right? And once again, recommended me. He saw me. No one may have cared about my social media post, but he knows I'm a good drummer. He saw me playing drums. We jammed a couple of times and whatnot.
Yeah.
And he recommended me for the artist Saint Levant, who ironically, like I've heard of, didn't really know his music. And the first day of the rehearsal, I said hello. His name's Medwan. I said hello to Medwan. And the first thing he said to me is like, "You don't remember me, dude?" And I was like, "Uh-oh, what do you mean?" I do not. But what do you mean? He's like, "Dude, 2 years ago, Abed, the same guy, put us in touch. I was in my dorm in UC Santa Barbara, and you gave me so much marketing advice."
Oh shit.
And this was during Artist Pro. And I was like, dude, I was talking to like 6 artists a day at the time. I don't remember. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But now I'm playing drums for you. You clearly ran with it. Like, let's do this thing. You know what I mean? So like,
and you're coming from that place of, let me just help people and serve. Like I always bring it back to like service, you know? It's like we're either leading from our ego and just trying to get stuff for ourselves, which a lot of people are living in. And there's, you know, there's nothing wrong with that to a certain extent, but if that's all you're living in, you know, you get so much more when you're giving and you're coming from a place of service. And like just that, you know, that one conversation, you know, that's, I don't know. And think about like how many of those conversations you've had, you know, like how many of the people that you've helped along the way. And it is all energy. It is all the law of reciprocity. It's this universal karmic law. Like whatever you put is going to come back to you.
Yeah.
You know?
And you have to let the timelines play out, man. You know what I mean? Like that was a 2-year
years
timeline.
later.
I remember like at the time, because I looked at the email, he wasn't even like an Artist Pro student. It was just like we just talked, dude. You know, I was like, I mean, dude, I'm down because my homie says like you're down, I'm down, let's talk. You know, like no problem. And that's how it manifested. And back to the whole like I'll show them, you know, if I could be completely like real and vulnerable, like I needed that Coachella gig. Well, also, like, I almost lost that Coachella gig because at the time, Medwan had never played with a live drummer. And after they told me to learn all those songs, I brought my arrangements to them. In the first 2 days, the music director, the whole band's like, "Dude, you're killing it. This sounds awesome." And then homie showed up to rehearsal. He's like, "It sounds really rock." And everyone's like, "It's just live. It's not rock. It's just live. You're not used to live, you know?" So basically, in so many words, the music director was like, "We have to figure this out today." And I'm like, "Oh, today? Like, does that mean if we don't figure it out today?" He's like, "Yeah." Like we're gonna go all program beats. I'm like, no. And
shit.
Thank God the front of house guys, guy Joey, also a drummer, pulls me aside. He's like, he doesn't know what he's. I'll help you with this.
Yeah.
Like help me like retune the drums and like.
Yeah. What was the solution to that?
Deaden the shit out of the drums. Go from this big open live, frankly festival sound to this completely dead sound. Rely more on samples on my SPDSX. Have some backing tracks play either on top of them or replace them in and out as needed. And I had to learn all the songs over again, basically. And I woke up the next morning because then Marwan's going to come back and now hear the new sound. And I woke up like, if I lose this, I lose this. Like, whatever. Like, I really thought this was going to be my breakthrough moment. Not a breakout, because I definitely learned there's a difference. But whatever. If I don't get it, this is my best stab. I played the songs. It was lunchtime. They didn't fire me yet. And after I got through, I turned to the guys. I was like, so should I make plans that weekend? Am I invited to the party? And the MD, the manager, and Marwan were like, dude, we're so sorry we put you through that. Clearly, we didn't know what we wanted, and you crushed it. Like, thank you for this. And I remember, dude, I wasn't even happy. Nick, I drove home in just utter silence, just like shaking, just thinking like, I want to go to bed. I just want to go to sleep. Like, that was one of the most intense, stressful things I've ever done in my life because the stakes are so high. The stakes are so high.
Okay, what was it like to play Coachella?
Well, let me be real. So it's 2 weekends. The first weekend, we were plagued with technical difficulties up the ass. And it sounds like a lot of people were. We were not alone in this.
Well, and you guys had there were a lot of people on stage. That was a big band. Like, how many people were involved in that band and production?
I think
it wasn't a fucking DJ up there just plugging in some CDJs. You guys had a real live show. Yeah.
It was 9 people, I think, up there. And then from there, we had like dancers and stuff for like the second half of the arrangement. But I will say this is totally a matter, dude, of like experience and like the whole notion of stay ready so you don't have to get ready thing. Like by the time I got on that stage, dude, like I remember feeling oddly calm. I'm like, I'm prepared because I worked my ass off for this shit and I know what I'm doing. Like all these parts are memorized.
And how many people were in the crowd?
I don't know, a lot. I never seen that many people before. Put it this way, I've never heard a roar through my microphones like that.
Oh,
like
shit.
That was kind of distracting because we had a lot of technical issues. We couldn't hear each other. At one point, we were given like the wrong metronome, like the wrong click for song. At one point, I had 2 metronomes. I had 2 different tempos at one of the most important parts of the song, the set
what the
too.
Fuck?
So the first week, I have to be honest, we were all in survival mode. We were all just like, oh my God. And you can kind of see it a little bit on all our faces. So sadly, Nick, like I was trying to actually kind of quiet down that crowd and trying to ignore them a little bit because I couldn't physically hear my musicians. I could not. But we got through it, and I watched the live stream there a couple of times. I'm like, that's an act of God. Like how did we stay on time for that part? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But weekend 2, we were assured that they would have their stuff together, and weekend 2 was by far the most like special one. Like that one, it was flawless. There was no technical issues, and I got to really soak in the crowd, man. And seeing just all those people just so stoked, but more importantly, just that roar. I've never experienced a roar like that. But at the same time, I remember like not being scared, intimidated, I think, because number one, I've done this enough times now where it got me ready for that stage, even though I kind of went from like small little clubs to Coachella. But it was just more confidence in what I prepared, and just more confidence. Just you have to have this feeling, man, of just like, I fucking belong here. Let's go. Next
dude.
song, please. Next song. Let's go.
For sure. And that was, I think first off, man, just celebrating you massively, celebrating you for saying yes to the calling, for what I call getting back in the arena, pursuing the artist path, pursuing the artist dream. And of course you're up there on stage at Coachella because that is where you fucking belong, because that's the kind of reward you get when you pursue a courageous lifestyle and you pursue your calling and you give your gift. So wasn't surprised at all to see you up there. I was like, fuck yeah, let's go. And yeah, man, it's, I don't know, it's just really, really cool to see. So I'm pumped for you, dude.
Thank you, dude. And there was also, again, I know this is kind of ego driven, but like someone like me, the wounded child, like I needed that breakthrough because so many people, I think, still had this notion of Hisham's the marketing guy. Oh, he dabbles in music. That's cool.
Yeah.
And I purposely did not tell anyone about this Coachella thing for a couple of reasons. One, I know how this shit works, man. Like anything can happen at the last minute. I know
Yeah.
how this shit goes. I've been around this shit long enough. So that number one. Number two, my marketing strategy, if you will, was shock and awe. Old school shock and awe. Just post the photo, dude. Just post the photo. And then of course the comments will come in because there's no anticipation, there's no hype. And at that point you let the audience kind of internalize like, have I been sleeping on this dude the whole time?
Yeah.
You know
It's the opposite of what most people are doing, which is like, I'm announcing that I'm gonna make an announcement, right? Like, I'm gonna make an announcement very soon.
Completely.
Get ready for the announcement that's announcing the announcement.
The teaser for the teaser for the
No,
teaser.
bro. Yeah, bro. Like, here you go. Just fucking boom.
Yeah.
This is it.
So that
Drop it.
I feel like, there was a breakthrough that I feel like I personally fucking needed, because now at this point, like, even I can't, whenever my imposter syndrome kicks in, like now I have a drum head signed from all the bands, and I have my artist wristband at Coachella that I'm about to like frame on my wall, not as a matter of showing off, but as a matter of just like, hey, next time you're doubting yourself, I have that for, like, I have a record on my wall here that I did a remix contest that I won for an artist that I really dig. And the only reason it's here is because it was the grand prize, a signed vinyl, but it's right there because if I'm ever just like, I suck, wait, can't be that bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, like, I don't know if I'll ever get to a stage like that. Well, that over there says differently, so that I personally need those kinds of things. But the next step I have now I've laid out is there's a breakthrough. And then the next thing I'm working toward now is the classic breakout. And that would be either a song, an album, a video, something that people are resonating with, that it's starting to strike the demand. Because I feel like so many of us are just constantly just putting shit out there that we like to do. That's, again, the breadcrumbs like you talked about. But until like you have some kind of breakout moment where people are like, yo, more of that. Or just like, we like you now. Which, by the way, another thing I want to tell people listening to this is like, just to not get so discouraged from like the low views or the lack of engagement on something that you're really excited about. If you're like, I love that piece of music I did, or I love that video I just made, but it only gets like a couple of views, not a lot of streams, whatever it might be. It's the classic case of like, people don't give a shit until they do. They do. And then once they do, you realize, I'm not doing anything different. I'm not doing anything different. It's just a matter of positioning, and now people have just framed me a little differently. I'm still doing my thing. The quality is still the same. So people don't give a shit until they do.
Yeah. So you were doing the neoclassical piano kind of stuff before. That really popped off, but then it sounds like you got just kind of over that, kind of bored, and wanted to pursue some other creative directions.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you. I mean, I started performing as Risik playing piano, and I remember being very bored. Being like, especially coming from a drumming background where I just love visceral performance.
Yeah.
Like, I need more like physicality, I guess, and also the music I like to listen to is not just this kind of stuff. So the challenge, but also clearly, like the very clear calling, Nick, was like, how do I create a body of work that allows me to dance within the spectrums that I love to spend time in creatively and musically, and that fill me up. And I learned, like, you can't tell your whole story, or you can't express yourself fully in one genre. This is me. I can't do it in one genre. I can't do it in one song. So what I'm working on now, and why I stopped releasing music, because I just didn't want to continue to pigeonhole myself as the piano guy. So of course what you do, I went to the extreme opposite, right? I started making like more heavier music, but not even before this call, I'm playing the piano here. And it's just another one of those like, hey, don't hide from your past. Don't hide from your natural talent and ability. Dude, you can play piano. Like, you don't have to be the piano guy. But what I'm currently on now, and again, I encourage people to follow this if they think they need it. I'm working on an album's worth of material. I'm not going to say it's an album because I'm deciding I'm going to release an album per se yet, but I need a runway of 8 to 10 songs, maybe 45 to 60 minutes of music to allow me to create something where I'm able to flow through all the different kinds of emotions I'm into. So the track I just finished now is like 100 BPM, 3/4 time signature, 8 to 4/4 time signature, like heavy electronic music. But already I'm like, track number 2 of this needs to be gentler and softer and more performance oriented. And maybe track number 3 should incorporate some live drums now. And again, all of this is just me digging my hole a little deeper, dude. I'm just like, I need to keep going here. I'm not going to say this is my definitive sound per se. There's a few things that I'm like, these are definitely my sound. Some sound design things, synthesizers I've made, and patches that are definitely my sound. But like in terms of genre and what I'm doing, I don't know where the fuck I'm going, dude. But all I do know is I'm covering some very important ground, and I'm trusting the process here. that over the course of time, I'm going to get very defined at some point. And eventually, I'm going to be able to be consistent in my inconsistency. And that's the one thing that I used to be very insecure about. So that's what I'm working on now. It's incorporating neoclassic, cinematic, electronic, maybe some rock elements, some Middle Eastern influence as well. Not too much because I'm more than just that. You know what I mean? So I'm bringing all these things together and seeing where it leads. And this speaks to more demographic and psychographics. It's like, hey, I have the patience and time for this kind of range from an artist. I do. Like the progressive metal bands like that we talked about, like all the different kinds of artists that I'm truly into, that I invest in and that I really follow, I have noticed they do kind of span a wide range of genres. And it's kind of hard to pinpoint specifically what they do. And that used to give me so much insecurity as an artist, because I used to be like, well, I need to be definable. I need put me in the box. Please put me in the box, right? Almost.
Yeah.
But now I've entered this new phase of like, if I don't have patience and the room to allow myself to kind of dive into all these different sounds and bring them together in my own way, then the audience won't either. So once I granted myself this, I'm almost like, I'm not going after the people who are going to skip me after 6 seconds because I don't go straight to the chorus. That's not my demographic. I'm going after like the heads, like the real deep music nerds. And if my smaller 600 capacity room, that I might play in one day live is full of just those people, but it's smaller than what a larger room would have of the more casual, I'm cool with that, man. Because all those people in the room are like, no, we have time and patience for your song. Please keep going bigger. Please keep going wider.
Love that, man. Because it's so true. I think a lot of people do feel the pressure to be like, I got to find my sound. I got to make my one lane of, especially with like a lot of the electronic music stuff. And yeah, okay, cool. There's that works also, right? There's no one right path, right? But what is the right path for you? If you have more on your heart that you want to express, if you have more influence and more life experience and more emotions to explore, I do think it is your duty as an artist to explore all of those things, and there is a space for you. I don't listen to one style of music. I listen to so many different styles of music, right? So it would be cool to have an artist where it's like, oh, you kind of keep me on my toes a little bit, right? Like, I'm gonna follow your journey. It's not like I only listen to fucking house music. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's also changing a bit more too. Coachella is a great example. I love Coachella because of the wide variety. Is like, you can go there and be like, I'm gonna rock all these stages. I'm just gonna walk around and find new bands and get introduced to new styles. And I think that we're in a cool era of music where I think that is becoming more possible and more acceptable.
Some would argue that we're even in the era of like the death of genre. I'm not fully on that one yet, but my philosophy is also, Nick, of like, it's the longer path. It's definitely the longer tail. And while it may like not have as quick of a rise, because I think it's maybe harder to find your audience this way, because you have to sift through people who will appreciate that, right, and have that kind of threshold for that. But I would personally argue it's a longer tail, and it might get deeper than maybe the one that has a quicker rise, but that might be a little shallower, because people will go to the next thing. Like, whatever, this guy's giving me wubs, I'll go to this guy who's giving me all the drops. But this person, like, there's no one quite like you.
Yeah. Well, I even see that with my, I guess, following, you could call it. But it's like the people that rock with me, like I got people that have been rocking with me for 5 years, 6 years, since the beginning, since I started coaching 7 years ago. I had someone hit me up on Facebook, I think, where he's like, I never talked to this person in my life, and he's like, hey dude, randomly just messages me. He's like, yo, I've been watching you for the last 10 years. Wow. And I just wanted to say I thank you for all the inspiring posts and the words of encouragement and all this. He's like, he's never said anything to me for 10 fucking years. So one, you never know who really is following you, like keep showing up, keep putting stuff out. But it's like, I'd rather have 500 people that are with me for 10 years than 10,000 people that are with me for 1 year, but they just keep cycling out and leaving and aren't actually really following the journey, Plus, like, you have a thing for this. Like, this is clearly like one of the main things that you clearly noticed it, right? Because you like really leaned into it. And that's also kind of why, to be honest with you, Nick, like, I kind of paused my own artist educational stuff too, because sure, like, I have lots of insights to share going through this process, but I also recognize that this endeavor
does require my full attention.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot half-ass this. Same, I can't really half-ass, artist education kind of stuff either.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like, there's also a part of it just like, I think I did that. It served its purpose. Also, like, I recognize what it was in many ways, which is the shadow career, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like, I also know that education, being the beneficiary of such great mentorship and such gracious people, that's never going anywhere. I think that's
Yeah.
going to be a part of me forever.
It's
But
part of who you are, for sure.
But I do know I have to walk away temporarily.
Yeah.
Because I still do marketing for select clients. I still work with Tom Hulkenborg, Junkie Excel. Obviously, I've been with him for like 11 years. Certain other people that come through my radar. But I purposely turned down marketing consultation to focus strictly on this. And that's also something I want to really, articulate to the people listening to this, is that like, it does require that deep digging on a very, very consistent level. It's almost like exercise. I know you're really into fitness, of like the more consistent you are, like the gains, if you will. But it's almost like you need the gains you get at like, say, 3 weeks of consistent exercise and lifting. It's just push through a little harder to get to that new one. You can't take like a time period off and be like, all right, I'm just going to get back up to that PR again. Like, you do need that consistency. You need those new muscles to be built constantly.
For sure, dude. Well said. Let's talk about this idea of the shadow artist, because I've heard that term from The Artist's Way. Is that where you get that from? The book, The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron?
I read it, and I've done the whole exercise of it. I didn't have the second one, the sequel she did. I haven't completed that one yet. But I've heard the shadow career notion somewhere else. By the way, you cannot make this shit up, Nick. The first artist I ever worked with that got my marketing career, the shadow career, that got it launched was DJ Shadow. Who was a huge inspiration of mine.
Yeah.
But like, look, I'll never forget, I was actually at Icon during an office hours when that revelation hit me. I'm like, oh, you can't write this shit.
Yeah. Before the call, I was telling you about how when I moved to Austin, I was actually going more into men's coaching and really getting into this men's workspace. And this idea, it was because, I was really wrestling with this idea of the shadow artist. And I think I am still to a certain extent. I think it's still there, but for me, I started my career working at Capitol Records and managed DJs, worked at Icon Collective, started coaching. And then I had this moment where I was coaching artists. I'd kind of, like the first time I kind of owned that as being like my niche. And as I started walking further down that path, I started to feel a lot of imposter syndrome. I started to feel a lot of being out of integrity, because I was like, who am I to coach these artists when I had that dream of being an artist when I was a teenager and I didn't follow that? All of these people are following that. And so I still had that sort of inner artist inside of me that was chirping at me, being like, yeah, bro, you're a fucking phony, like you're not qualified to teach these people. And so I actually walked away from it at that point, and I was much more, I was like, well, I am really on this journey of discovering what it means to be a man. And a lot of the clients I was working with, we started working on this like men's work coaching, really diving deep into masculinity and masculine energy and our relationships with our fathers and all this really, really deep stuff. And I was pulled towards that path. But then for me, it really all clicked, where I was like, one, it was actually in a breathwork session. I was here in Austin. I was very lost. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I was like, man, like, I almost quit coaching twice. I was like, I don't even know if I want to keep doing this. I was really healing from a breakup. I was just like, not in a space to really hold space for others. And I did this breathwork session, and I had this literally lightning bolt of clarity that came through me. And it was like, go back to artists. It was like, these are the people that but not only that, this is the community that you are like called and destined to serve. There's already 5,000 men's coaches in Austin. We don't need another fucking men's coach. There's not coaching really happening in this space. And for me, like, the story and the narrative that really clicked in my head was like, I had to go through the experience of, being an artist when I was a teenager, not following that path, not having the guidance, not having the support, going down the athlete path instead, crushing it really hard in that space, becoming an All-American, collegiate All-American rugby player, but then kind of coming full circle, recognizing that was why I was successful as an athlete, was because I had coaches, I had structure, I had teamwork, I had all of these things that I had learned by being like a, championship athlete. And I also had to have that pain of walking away from being an artist and knowing what that feels like. And now that has actually really become the driving force behind the mission is I don't want anyone to feel that pain of walking away from their dream and from their passion. And a lot of times the difference between staying in it and walking away is just having that support in your corner. And a lot of artists don't have that support, right? It's like, it's not part of the sort of normal structure of that system. Is like, you're out there hacking away in the forest by yourself with your machete and your flashlight, trying to figure things out, you know? So it's all kind of come full circle. It really clicked for me, you know, about a year ago. And I'm like, all right, now I know why I went through that, you know?
From what I observed from you too, Nick, whenever your imposter syndrome like kicks up again, like try to remember maybe this notion, is that as I saw you go through that and I saw you return to artists, I noticed from the videos I saw and all the results that you were showcasing, you did it because you asked yourself, maybe subconsciously, like, where can I make the most impact in people's lives? You weren't like, where's the market capitalization on this? Just like, where can I actually make an impact? You know what I mean? And for that, I just respect that.
And it hit me too recently, which was pretty cool, of realizing, I'm like, man, if I am an artist, if I went down the artist path, and like, let's say I sold out a show of 2,000 people, like, cool, like I'm making an impact on these 2,000 people. But when I look at it, I'm like, yo, I've coached, like, you know, just through coaching, probably 150 people or more, not to mention everyone from fucking Icon and all the past, you know, students or whatever. But I'm like, I got 500 artists out there now playing in front of however X amount of people. And I'm like, the ripple effect and the impact that has now. And that really lights me up, where I'm like, all right, let me go help all, you know, this generation of people go become headliners, and like that will affect literally millions of people. So that vision really lit me up, and I'm like very committed.
Let me throw
to
this
that.
at you. Maybe this could be a sample, like not a coaching moment, but for you, from you to me, actually, but just something I'd love your point of view on. And I've had this conversation at length with people. So I think that what I'm doing now by returning to this whole thing again and starting to make the progress I'm doing, there's a part of me that goes, this is inherently a selfish endeavor, what I'm doing, because it's all about me. It's all about extracting what's in me, extracting my potential, you know, doing something that I find interesting and fun in my day. I mean, thank God I wake up early in the morning, like around 4:45, 5 a.m. usually. Number one, just productivity reasons, but number two, I'm happy to report because I'm just excited. I'm excited about what ground I'm going to be breaking today, what new discovery I'm going to be making today. But progress is exciting. But I'm also very aware of, like, this is still kind of like a selfish thing. And the only thing I can tie, Nick, is that, like, okay, yeah, like the people who hear my music in the same way that when I hear other people's music and it really fills me up, inspires me, like, that's a nice benefit. But I would argue that I'm not making music right now to enhance people's lives per se. And I would almost argue that I'm making it to enhance my own. So what would you say to that notion of what I'm doing is actually, frankly, a selfish thing?
Yeah, well, I think on the one hand, it is. I also think that it's actually not about the music. It's about your journey and how you're living your life. That you have chosen to go on the hero's journey, that you did choose to pursue your calling and pursue your passion. And when other people see that, like I'm watching you do it and I get inspired. I know what my mission is and I'm committed to that. But if I didn't know what that was, I might just say, fuck it, I'm going to go be an artist. And so I'm excited for you. And this also might help with your marketing. I'm excited for you to share your story and to tell your story, because there's someone else out there, and you might be listening to this podcast right now, where you are working your 9-to-5 job that you know isn't really lighting you up, that you know isn't your actual purpose for why you're here. And they hear your story, or they hear the story of Freddie Lane or any of my other, friends and guests that I have that were in that similar situation, and they made the decision to go for it and to cross that threshold. Right. And then so seeing you actually succeed at it, seeing you play Coachella, seeing you put out your music and be able to do it, that right there is being in leadership. And I guarantee you will inspire countless people when you continue to put yourself first and own that path, but also share it and really walk the talk. Like I'm also showing other people in a way like, hey, yeah, like I've been able to build my own career and build my own business and follow my pursuit and my passion. And I'm talking to young coaches all the time being like, yo, you can do this too. it's not one or the other. It's the duality of it. Like, yeah, it's totally selfish, but by you being totally selfish and walking that path, you're also in service of inspiring people to pursue a similar path and inspiring them into their greatness.
It's a great insight. It kind of reflects like just healthy, if you think about it, like if you were to look at the artist to fan relationship, just healthy relationships in general, right? Where like it's best to take care of yourself first so in order to take care of others, you know? So it does kind of reflect just like the natural flow of just relationships.
Yeah, dude, you gotta put your own air mask on first, right? Your cup needs to be full in order for you to overflow into others.
I'll keep that in mind. If anything, my insecurity there is that like I'm frank, I'm still getting over this. I don't know if I fully am. Of like I've almost tried to hide or mask the industry background I've had because I have this little floating voice in my head that would sprinkle a little dust that would remind me that whatever you're doing now, it created, your background has created an impurity to the creative stuff that you're doing now because you didn't come from that world. Hence, I'm self-taught. Hence, I do all these things myself. But I've started to realize though a little bit, Nick, I was working with a singer here and she was doing some harmonies. And again, like I think I know the basics of like music theory, but like my own kind of version of it. And she was doing some harmonies and I was like, oh no, she was doing a line. I was like, can you do a harmony of that? So she did all the harmonies that are in that particular scale, right? And then I was like, can you do this note? And she's like, oh, but that's not it. That's not the right one. I'm like, can you just try it? And like, it made for this beautiful, like full chorusy effect that I went in and like started sampling and added to the track. And at the end of the session, you know, she sat down where she was about to leave. She's like, hey, just like, I just want to say something to you. Like, I really love your intuition and instinct. And all I said to her was like, good, that's literally all I'm running on. I have nothing else, dude. I'm just doing my own thing. Yeah, dude. You know? So all those things I thought were bad are actually the thing that kind of separates me a little bit.
1,000%, dude. 1,000%. My entire career and life has just been driven by intuition. Like what feels right. None of this shit is logical. None of this shit makes any fucking sense. You know, like there's no roadmap, but like trust that inner voice and that inner gut feeling, you know? And yeah, also again, it's not necessarily one or the other, right? It's good to have the technical training and the logical side of it, but a lot of people are disconnected from that intuition and that's where the fucking money's at.
Yeah.
You know?
And again, it all comes like, it's like where did you come from, right? I mean, I came from a band background where like all of us didn't fucking know anything about music. We just knew about like vibes and felt good.
We're drummers, bro. We come from feeling, you know what I mean? It was like you're not thinking about what you're doing. You're just like, what does my body want to do? Like that's our background.
Great thing to bring up because my whole musical career has been about responding to music, like responding to how music makes me feel.
Yeah, and it's totally different. Like if you grew up being classically trained in the piano and you were learning how to sight read, you know, like that's a very intellectual, different style, right? And so we're all gonna, you know, operate from different places, but we're lucky, bro. We grew up as drummers. We got some fucking, we got groove and we got passion and we got fucking insight.
A friend of mine, my friend Thomas in Berlin, he's an amazing piano player, plays Chopin amazingly. And one time he said to me, he's like, you play like a drummer on the piano. I'm like, I know. He's like, no. Yeah, it's good.
Just like
it's good. I can tell you're a percussionist, same. You know.
Yeah, I love it, dude. I can always hear it too. Like one of my good buddies and clients is a really sick producer too, and like he'll throw these little grooves and shit, you know, like in the melodies and the production. I'm like, only a drummer would do that. Only a fucking drummer would come up with that.
Before my parents got me my first drum set, I had a little Yamaha keyboard and I was playing finger drums. Like I just knew where all the maps were. Yeah. So I'm used to playing tom fills on my fingers. So like this new track I'm working on now, like it's so obvious. I'm just doing like triplets, like that are like I'm doing a tom fill for this one little phrase. It's so obvious to me, you know. But it's like, but that's me.
Yeah,
that's my sound.
For sure, man. This is something I always like to tell artists as well, as like a lot of people's goal is I want someone to feel something. I want my fans I want them to feel my music. And I'm like, all right, well, you got to feel your music. You got to make your music from a place of feeling if you want that energy to be transmuted through your music. And I think that's one of the best ways that you can feel your music is to get out of just clicking fucking buttons in Ableton, and like you get your hands on something, get your hands on a controller, get your hands on a keyboard, get your hands on something, like stand up while you're doing it, like get your body into it, get your feeling into it, and that energy will go into the music, and it will be felt in a different way than when it's just coming from the mind and you're like clicking on the piano roll,
like that track that I'm working on, or that I just finished up rather, like I made like the drum pack, I got the sounds I wanted, and I noticed that I was like, all right, cool, I guess we're done here, I'm just gonna like program these in. But I noticed I was like, all right, let me pull the sticks out. And they played on the sampler. And I noticed every time I played it on the sampler, I just kept playing this 3/4 pattern. I'm like, dance music in 3/4? Like, what the fuck? This doesn't make any sense. But the more I kept doing it, I'm like, no, this is a naturally this rhythm feels good. It has life to it. Like, because it's coming from, I'm moving to this. Like, all right, we're just gonna record this and just kind of see where it takes us. And that led the rhythmic pace of almost the rest of the song. It does go to 4/4 at the end for the big climax, but I just noticed that when I just switched it up, I'm just gonna play this part, and it comes out so much different.
And that's the big thing, man. I think in a very simple way to break it down, it's like get in tune with your feeling, get in tune with the gut, visceral, intuitive feeling. Identify where that is, get in tune with it. You need to be able to listen to it. You need to be able to feel it, right? Whether that's like a whisper in your ear, whether that's a feeling inside of your gut, then have the courage to trust it and to follow it. That's the other part, because it might not make any logical sense. Like, what, 3/4? Wait a minute, this doesn't follow the rules. Your job as an artist is to break the fucking rules, right? Have the courage to break the rules. Have the courage to try to do something different. You know, if we look back on any of the, artists that came out of Icon that really blew the fuck up, we can identify some way that they all broke the rules in some way. They all started, adding a different flavor, a different sauce, making a certain genre of music in a way that shouldn't really have been made, and so that's where the breakthrough is, right? Is in taking the risks.
I just want to say this to the people I know who are listening to this, of just like, I know we all feel it, right? This pressure to constantly release, to constantly get stuff out there, which, I just always shun, because it takes away, it robs you of that discovery process. So again, it took me 3.5 weeks for this one song. And like that drum part I just described to you, I mean, that was 2 days. That was just 2 days of just like really diving deep, fucking with sound design, and eventually coming to this 6 bars of just like, all right, after 2 days, here's all I got. Just like these 6 bars. But there's so much life that went into it. So what I want to bring up is that, like, again, so many people feel this pressure, like, I got to release every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, etc. I propose a different kind of marriage of the two worlds, if you were, of my marketing world that would demand, actually, I need content. I need releases from you consistently if we're going to build your audience base. But now that I have this, thank God, it's just more like creative freedom and understanding what it means to go in deep with your creative work and really spend time on it. Treat your tracks as compositions. What I would say, and this is what I'm just following my own advice here, is like, I believe it's okay to go away for a while, to disappear for a while, to get off social media, to not be influenced by everyone who's doing everything better than you all around, and just dive deep on your compositions, and then create a body of work, a catalog, if you will, of songs that you can feel that, you know what, I took those as far as they could go, man. I gave myself 2-3 weeks, whatever it might be. I brought in that song. I brought in an oud player. I brought in another singer. I to fully realize what this vision is. Because, dude, you have to sit with the music for periods of time. That's why you have version 6, 7, 8. You just have to keep sitting with it. And your ears, naturally, after they've rested, of course, will start to fill in the gaps. We'll start to hear things.
Yeah.
And eventually it is the Da Vinci saying, right, of like, it's never finished, only abandoned. When you go like, that's pretty so well realized. Do that over the course of 8 to 10 songs. And then, of course, create all the supplemental stuff, the videos, the promotional stuff. Have those in the bank. So when it does come time to pull the trigger, you can start releasing, because everything was already made in advance. Meanwhile, you're doing a photo shoot, or maybe you're working on the next batch of material. But you have that 8 to 10 track with videos. If you were just to use the 2 week, release strategy, that's 16 weeks of stuff that's just rolling. You're just rolling, and then you get to disappear again and make music again.
Dude, I love that you bring that up, because I've been having this conversation a lot and floating this idea around a lot about having seasons. And it makes me think about a traditional like rock band signed to a major label. Like you go in the studio for 6 months and you write music, or you go in a cabin and you record your fucking album for months, right? And then like album writing and recording mode is over, and then we go on tour, and now we're out playing. And then maybe we take the summer off and we take a few months to see the family and hang out. And that's the way it's been done, you know. And so especially in the EDM space where it's like, yeah, put out a track every week, you know, or every month, and there's almost this constant weight and pressure that's on your shoulders. What we're really talking about here is lifestyle design. It doesn't have to be that way. What if you took 3 months to just completely go in on music, and then that was it, and then the rest of your year could be spent, you know, focusing on the marketing, or, you know, taking fucking vacations, taking some time off, going out and living your life like we were talking about earlier. You know, I remember talking to Derek from Slander one time, and he was like, yeah, he's like, I make pretty much all the music in January. He's like, we take off January and like maybe like the first 6 weeks of the year, and we make all our music then. I don't know if they still operate that way anymore, but he was like, when we're out flying around, being in hotels, and he's like, I can't produce that way. I need to be in my home studio. And so we just block ourselves in. We make all our music for the year, and then we kind of don't have to worry about it, you know? So again, you know, you got to find out what works for you, but just to plant that seed, if it's not working for you, producing every day, making content every day, feeling like you're always on a constant hamster wheel, maybe there's a different way that you can do things.
Yeah.
You
Maybe
know?
some people, like you said, resonate with the way, but call me old school, Nick.
Yeah.
But, like, I grew up in the era where, like, yeah, that's exactly what bands did.
Yeah.
And frankly, that was the lifestyle that I wanted to emulate. Dude, I did not grow up as a little kid teaching himself instruments saying, boy, I cannot wait to make my full-time occupation making temporary distractions for these phone addicts. No, that's why I don't want to be an Instagram musician.
Dude.
I don't want to do all these things. Like, no, I'd rather go really deep on shit and find the people who really appreciate that shit. And again, have a seasonality, because like the lifestyle I'm looking to build calls for intense moments of deep creativity. I fucking love being in this room. I'm a very social person, but
Yeah.
I fucking love being in this room, in
Yeah.
my home. But I also know there's going to be seasonality here. But like, all right, I gotta kind of go out there now and show people it,
Yeah.
and bring it around the world. But at the same time, like it's not realistic to be like, I made a track, people liked it, fuck, I gotta go make another one. That just ain't it for me.
Yeah, man. Well, I love your perspective. I love your journey. I love you as a person. Thank you to all of the listeners for joining today and listening to me and Hisham catch up for an hour. This was very, very fulfilling for me. It's so great to see you. Next time I'm in LA, I will hit you up and we will hang. I miss you, dude. And thanks for hopping on today.
Cheers. Well, thank you for having me. It's just good to see your face again.
Not like you.